What can you say about a man who said so much with so few words? Can words ever do him justice? Your silence was golden, reflecting all that you were. You didn't need words. Your actions spoke louder.
I used to watch how he davened. I used to watch how he learned. And to me, he was a walking Musa Sefer.
You hear from children in 35 years, nobody ever heard him raise his voice.
I never saw him get angry. I never saw him get boastful. I never saw him talk down to anybody.
Even when he wanted to give somebody a little Musa, this and that, it was sweet, with a smile.
And even when he held of something, and the nature is that when somebody of his philanthropy and the way he held out the school, you would feel like you want to satisfy him, he wouldn't let you just say yes. He would say, think it over and tell me what your objective decision is.
And he wasn't a weak person, he was a strong person. When we had to fight something, he would fight. He was a very strong person. Each person would come with their hearts.
His heart and mind were big enough that even when he was busy and giving a lot of stock, a lot of checks, he would still be able to stop and think about the person he's giving to, how to do it in a way where he'll feel good and not be embarrassed.
He just was that kind of person to make everybody feel comfortable and to care about others more than he cared about himself.
He would always put on his jacket right before somebody would come in, regardless who it was.
He'd come open the door himself, escort you out to the door, welcome you in like you're the greatest person.
Whenever we would go to meet someone, he would always first say, excuse me, and then introduce me to the rabbi or a very famous person.
While he recognized who he was and the success that he had, he didn't allow himself to be taken in and sidetracked by what he felt his tachlis was. And the tachlis was really to rebuild Torah after the war. He had just tremendous kavod for Talmidei Chachamim, for Rosh Yeshivas.
His patras das Torah was moizik.
Some people, if they're wealthy, they think we know better. You know, never Rav Shach said that was it.
As kids, we constantly heard him talk about Gedolei Yisrael. Always at the Shabbos table, talking about the Chazon Ish, Shabbos Zalman, or Reuven Bengis.
You often talked about your years in yeshiva and about the Gedolim that you so revered. It was many years later, but you spoke like you were still living it.
In the house, he didn't play the part of this wealthy man, big businessman type of person. He just was a regular father.
On one hand, he was very out in the world, very worldly person. On the other hand, he was out of the world. When you come to visit him in his house, the very little sichas chulin. Mostly he was talking and learning.
In the Beis HaMedrash, he was a staman elach balbos. If you wouldn't know his name, you wouldn't be able to identify him.
You would think that he was a yeshiva bacher. He was sitting in yeshiva.
He, in essence, was a yeshiva bacher. So he was a yeshiva bacher that did well, but he remained a yeshiva bacher.
And every time I would come to the house for the minyan, inevitably, he would be sitting there learning.
His day was all about being a frum yid and davening and learning and doing all of those things. I think he would interrupt those things to work.
You were a true anav in the real sense of the word, knowing that everything you were and everything you had were to be used to give nachas to the one above.
He always felt that he was representative of something far more than just himself and his own company and his own business. He was a representative of Klal Yisrael.
He was willing to sacrifice for Shabbos, millions, I know, millions for Shabbos.
Even though he did get to meet all kinds of incredibly important people in his life, those were just passing people. That wasn't what it was all about. If he spent time with Margaret Thatcher, that was just work.
He saw his success as something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed him with. He didn't think that it was his own koich v'etzem yodi. The interesting part is that if you would know my father-in-law, you would see a man who was so brilliant in business that for one not to claim koich v'etzem yodi would be very difficult.
As he continued to be matzliach, the only difference to him was, so how much money can I give to the next yeshiva? How many more koilim can we open up?
Moshe Reichmann's need to help Rosh Yeshivas be ma'abed Torah was unfathomable. The empire he built in Hatorah was bigger than the empire he built in his business.
The stocker that he gave was without cheshbainis no COVID, no negias.
I don't think he had a complicated cheshbon for things. He was just really quite simple. It was really quite basic. I have to do as much as I can with what I have.
He said, you have to know, just like you borrow money in a building to buy a new building, you borrow money to give to tzedakah. You take out a mortgage in your building to give to tzedakah.
Whatever he did, he always had in mind to achieve more than he would be able to achieve by himself.
Those he respected the most were not by how much they gave, but those who were willing to step out of their own community. Moshe was the exception to what the Chofetz Chaim said, that those who tried to hide behind Chazal, is only those who have enough money to give everybody. Moshe despised that. He never called to me the Chofetz Chaim. But Moshe was the few the Chofetz Chaim meant when he said, Roiv, hide behind it. Moshe stood in front of it.
He never made a big deal about what he was doing. He never said like, oh, I chapped the mitzvah today, I gave this yeshiva $1 million, or oh, I helped this poor guy. He never at all spoke that way. I don't think he thought that way either.
Every single day during 1992, there were meetings all day long trying to resolve incredibly complicated problems. But I think the one thing that was at that boardroom table every single day was a bitochen that somehow this is going to work out. Somehow in the end, it'll prove to be just another step in his mission, the family's mandate to continue to support Klal Yisrael. I think it may have come as a bit of a shock when it kind of really didn't happen that way. And I think there was a realization that maybe it's not going to turn out quite as well as we'd like to think it might. But I think there was very quickly an acceptance that, okay, if that's the plan, that's the way we'll go for it, and that's what we'll do.
He was what he was, with money, without money. Always the same.
Make business with him was a way of helping stockers, things like that. When he did it was good, and he was able to makabel the good, and when the Bush made the money lost, good, he tried the best he could, but he was never tzibrochen.
The Sfarim, the Chazon Ish, one of B'tochen, amongst the various other Sfarim, never left his bedside.
After Ma'avi comes over to me with a Rabbeinu B'chaya, and opened it up to the beginning of Parshas Miketz, which speaks about Yosef and B'tochen, this and that, and he starts reading it for me, and he showed me. And the Rabbeinu B'chaya says that, you know, when a person, the Eibishter makes, that he becomes big, but, you know, sometimes the person loses it all. And you have to hold your betochen, and whatever Hashem does is good. He showed this to me, this whole piece, and he says, this is what I got to work on now.
He did say to me on more than one occasion that he felt that the monies that he gave to tzedakah over the years was the money that he got back the second time around. So again, you know, did he count? No, but in his mind it was so embedded that if Chazal say that nothing bad can come from giving tzedakah, then it was pushed by him, then that's what happened to him.
All that he had saved up in his whole life was what he gave away. And that to him was the obvious thing. There was a bank account, a ruchniistic bank account, that was full. That was worth billions of dollars.
Toronto had the schus to have him planted in this community, to protect the community, to guide it.
It was his brainchild to bring the girl to the city, bring young Talmidei Chacham to the city, which made a tremendous impression in the city.
Yesodei Torah was something that he felt very close to.
He felt very strong to continue the Mesiris, old tradition he had from his parents. That's why he was very makbid in the school, she learned Yiddish.
And I think my father had a lot of akar satayv to Rabbi Asher for what he's done for the school and for Chinuch Habanim in Toronto.
The quality of education by him was extremely important. He wanted to make sure that they got the best education possible.
My uncle always felt that this school was the centerpiece of the Torah-based chinuch system in this city, and always felt that everything else emanated from Yesodei Torah.
How can we ever say thank you? how can we ever repay you? Your strength, your midas, your Torah, your tzedakah were an example to us all. We can only continue to emulate who you were and teach others to do the same.
The most important thing that my uncle Moshe Reichmann did in his lifetime, by far, was that he taught the world to give. That is something that will be with us forever.
We learn from him derech eretz, respecting another human being.
To present oneself as an Eved Hashem.
Have an open hand, give tzedakah, and the more you give, the more you'll be matzliach, the more Hashem will repay you.
If you're thinking about how you can be like Moshe Reichmann, then you're never going to be like Moshe Reichmann. Because Moshe Reichmann didn't think about how is he going to be at a level where everyone's going to say, wow, here's the big Baal tzedakah, and how can I be like this person who has such a name in the Welt. He just did it because that's what he was.
He really was a regular person doing something that he enjoyed doing. He had Siyata D'Shmaya, and he did the right things with it. And that's who he was.